Here we go.
You really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker. What you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way. Close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it! Hits it!
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I am not a big Notre Dame guy at all, kind of like Jake over there. But I hope for good things for you Fighting Irish. I know there are a lot of Fighting Irish fans, and honestly, I should be on board with this just simply because I know our good friend Mike Manley of Manley's Irish Mud on the east side is a big-time Irish fan. So I love the fact that there is some compelling football collegiately to tune into tonight and tomorrow and locally within the state. Notre Dame and Penn State coming up later on this evening. The Capital One Orange Bowl down in Miami. And that should be fun as hell as it is officially underway at 7:30. We got in conversation yesterday with Charles Arbuckle. He joined us talking a lot of college football, the remainder of things, Notre Dame, Penn State, as well as Ohio State and Texas. Podcast with that, 1075thefan.com. As Jake had mentioned before we fired up this show, Chris Ballard was sick back on Tuesday, and the presser was postponed, thus moved up until tomorrow at 10 a.m. Was it Tuesday or Wednesday now? Was it Wednesday when it was previously scheduled, I think? Yeah, and then moved now up until tomorrow. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. So we'll have full-scale opportunities to talk about what is said and whether or not you think anything different is going to be said. Any and all expectations ever stinking going to be met going into year number 9, which is just crazy. Hell, Tom Telesco got booted after a year. You go in and you draft the best tight end of the draft, and it works out as a rookie, and obviously new ownership, including that of Tom Brady, says, all right, Antonio Pierce, Tom Telesco, see ya. They either are identifying what they feel would be as problems in Vegas, or you just simply want to move on to somebody on your own. And if it's Bill Belichick, he's already the head coach in Chapel Hill, the Tar Heels. So you get a little bit of a soap opera, a little bit of a drama going on there. No drama here. You know what you're going to get. As I used to tell Blake and Laney, get what you get and you don't throw a fit. However, in this case, you're going to get what you get, and I'm assuming mostly everybody around you is going to throw a fit. Regardless of what is uttered, regardless of what is said coming up tomorrow morning, there's just simply put no way around it. At the very least, around here as a sports fan, you have the Pacers. That blue and gold kind of sliding into a good spot, in your opinion, right now. Nice win over Chicago. The Bulls in town last night, 129-113. I mean, honestly, I hated it at the end in the fourth quarter when he had to, Rick Carlisle, put back in the main guys because all of a sudden the Bulls were coming back. And if you go back to a game prior, the Bulls came all the way back, I think 19 down against the Spurs the game before and won that game. So you don't want to blank around with it. But the Pacers, a 129-113 win over the Bulls. I know he was on with Jake and Query and Company a little bit earlier. I am absolutely thrilled with Thomas Bryant. Thrilled. Over the moon. I really enjoyed watching him for IU and Bloomington anyway. And I know some of the old tight asses were a little bit put off about his level of enthusiasm. I would not be one of them. I love enthusiasm. Enthusiastic players. You dig being there and being a part of it. On all fronts. And it's not fake. Like, I like the non-fake. Benedict Mathurin is hardcore as hell. That's not fake. That's just who he is. I dig that. Thomas Bryant is incredible. I think Thomas Bryant would act the same way regardless of what team. Now, there are teams that will give you more of an opportunity because they're fun-loving and jovial more than others. I can't imagine if you're like holed up in Phoenix right now or in Miami where he was, how great that would be. But Thomas Bryant has been fantastic through what now, 13 games, and then last night the starter for Miles Turner, who was out with a sickness, and Thomas Bryant put up 22 points and 8 rebounds in that win, and it's just enjoyable. He fits in. This group is fun-loving together. It's one of the reasons why I was on board with them bringing everybody back, and it's a nasty thing, running it back. Nasty around here because you know what the football team is like when they have consistently decided to run it back. Or at least a close version of running it back. It's a dirty term around here now. Running it back is a dirty term. If you say somebody's going to run it back, that usually means that, hey, it's time to get half-assed and lose. It's a dirty term. Just by way of what the Colts have accomplished through basically 8 years going into 9 years of running it back at that position. Not every year, but certainly justified in the last 4. I mean, come on. But with this Pacer team, it was different. You see how they all get along, and you also see that there is, to me, a bar that can be raised. As we look at the Colts, and the bar could not be lower. I mean, when you're clapping about and happy about and excited about 8 and 9, and hey, you came back in overtime against this Jacksonville team that was backups to backups and a backup quarterback in a snowstorm, hey, that's great. Way to go. The bar could not be set lower for the pats on the back. For the Pacers, you can see, and it was a disappointing start, don't get me wrong. And hopefully we are seeing exactly what I expected to see. And I got a little nervous about it because I was completely on board. And among the things that have happened around here, sports-wise, this is the top of the list. Everybody involved. Personnel, higher-ups, organizational pieces. And even when I show my disgust for yes, sirs, and it is true, that is absolutely 100% accurate, I hate it. And I always will. However, I want to see this. There's never been anything around here that I want to see work and work consistently as much as this. There are a lot of good dudes everywhere. Don't get me wrong. But this Pacer team from top to bottom you got a group that you can really get behind. And I was nervous early on. I know they're just a couple of games over 500 right now, but I was nervous early on that maybe this was the wrong move. Maybe this isn't going to work out. And then you watch what's going on around you as well and what other teams are doing. I know that he's been a difference in the past, but can you believe Phoenix and Jimmy Butler? Now Jimmy Butler just wants to go to Phoenix, and Phoenix is going to try to work that out. Yeah, I'm telling you. You talk about leaving destruction in his wake. That is what Jimmy Butler will do. And at the moment, he'll give you somebody that can be a difference maker, especially in the larger moments, in the postseason moments on both ends. But if there is a level of unhappiness, he is going to leave destruction in his wake. Whether you're talking about Philly or Chicago or Minnesota, man, if he doesn't like it, he's out. I think that's one of the big reasons why this happens often, but certainly it seems more prominent as we discuss it in the NBA. One of the things and one of the reasons why I think a lot of you have a disgust for the NBA is because so many of these players can dictate terms that has a profound effect on everybody, including you, the fan. I'll jump back to that. And again, my love with the Pacers and that win last night, getting Golden State and Trace Jackson-Davis coming up on Friday night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and then a back-to-back with the Cleveland Cavaliers. If you watched the Cavs last night, especially down the stretch in the fourth against OKC, It is far beyond now to suggest that this thing is all about good fortune and luck and not legit. What they're doing in Cleveland is legit. That and more coming up in just a minute. But on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, we got to get him because he's in Jersey. Getting ready to go to Jersey Mike's before he goes to Jersey Mike's to call a game on the Boilermaker Radio Network. He is our old friend of the show, the voice of the Boilermakers on the hardwood. It is Rob Blackman. Hello, Rob. How are you?
Good, John. What's been going on, man?
Are you a fan of Jersey Mike's subs, buddy?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Sure. You mentioned it. We're playing in Jersey Mike's Arena.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, is that what they
yeah.
serve you guys that cover the team and the media? Is it like Jersey Mike's all the time inside the convenient room?
I don't know how they're doing it like at the NBA level, John, but what's happening at the college level is no one's serving the media meal anymore. They're just giving you like a $15 voucher for the concession stand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's the media meal. So, which isn't all bad, actually, when you're at somewhere like, say, Penn State, and they serve the creamery ice cream inside the stadium. That's cool. But, yeah, they don't a lot of places have done away with the media meal, actually. I think Purdue and maybe Indiana are two of the few that actually still serve some type of media meal before the game.
And shout out to that. And being from around Bloomington, IU always would bring in some of the old favorites from in and around Bloomington, whether you're talking about, Pizza Express or what now is called Pizza X, or maybe it would be Mother Bear's, or maybe it would be Yanko's Little Zagreb. It was always something great.
Oh, sorry to cut you off, but love me some Mother Bears, man.
There you go,
that
brother.
Is some good stuff right there.
Yes, it is, man. It is across the board. No longer on my dietary function right now, but I hold a lot of love with it. And no doubt about that.
How is that going, by the way?
I am down 65, my brother.
No way.
6'5".
No
I
way.
had no idea I had 65 to lose. I have not been. I'm at 189 right now. I haven't been in the 180s probably since the 80s. Yeah.
How do you feel like physically?
I feel awesome.
You feel okay?
I'm a ball of freaking 55-year-old energy that cannot be contained, Rob Blackman.
Man, good for you, dude. That's awesome.
Nah, man, I'm feeling fantastic. It's funny. I'm 55, and about 75% of my motivation for this, 25% health related, 75% because I just want to be able to run the floor playing basketball pickup again. Is that crazy or what? At 55, that's my major focus.
Hey, that's the thing, though, right? In a weight loss journey, you have to have some type of goal, right? Some tangible goal to look forward to, and sounds like you're getting it done, man. Good for you.
32-inch waist and shirtless at carb day. That's my ultimate goal right there.
I'll be on the lookout for that.
So Rob Blackman of the Boilermaker Radio Network with us. So the past four got you feeling a lot better about what this program is doing right now. And I know that they've run off a string here recently against Rutgers, but prior to that string, that place and then just playing Rutgers in general was horrific at times for this Purdue basketball program.
Yeah, something I was thinking about earlier in the week, actually, John, is the fact that if you look back at Purdue's really the last 3 years when Purdue's been on quite a run, whether it was being, ranked number one in the country for multiple weeks or going to a Final Four or winning back-to-back Big Ten championships, the two teams in our league that have given Purdue the most fits during that stretch have been Northwestern and Rutgers, which really makes no sense if you think about it traditionally. You would think it would be Illinois or Michigan or Indiana or Michigan State. That actually hasn't been the case. Purdue's had some pretty fortunate luck against those teams. It's been Rutgers and Northwestern, of all people, that have really made life difficult on Purdue. So it has not been easy for Purdue in this building. I think Purdue's 4-3 all time in this building, and we've had a couple heartbreakers. Obviously, the Ron Harper Jr. half quarter to beat Purdue when they were ranked number one for the first time in the school's history. That was a tough one to swallow. But yeah, Purdue has had, for whatever reason, man, has had a really tough time with Rutgers since Steve Peichel has come on board. And I know, look, they're not having a great season this year, but just something about Steve Peichel and Rutgers that they've always played Purdue tough, and I would expect the same thing tonight. I mean, they don't have Ron Harper Jr., but they do have Dylan Harper, who, we'll see how he is physically. I know.
Well, Ace Bailey's a badass, man. Let me tell you that.
Yeah.
A badass.
He can play.
Yeah.
I'm not one that follows the NBA super closely, but I do know that most of the mock drafts have Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey as number 2 and 3 going in the NBA draft, behind Cooper Flagg. So that's if you have 2 of the top 3 draft picks on your roster, you're probably a pretty good basketball team. So, yeah, this will be difficult tonight.
It's 6 o'clock tip time tonight. Rob Blackman's got you covered on the Boilermaker Radio Network. The Boilers on the road against Rutgers. Last 3, and again, I look at A&M and Auburn. Those are tough gets. I mean, Auburn, incredibly tough get. There's no doubt. I know that Matt was really disappointed with Texas A&M and how that thing went about at the end. But have you seen anything out of these last 3 to make you feel better about the direction this thing is going with this team?
Well, I would start with agreeing with you. Of those 2 games, Texas A&M and Auburn, you should have got the Texas A&M game. That's one I'm afraid that when it all comes down to it at the end of the regular season, that loss probably cost you at least 1 seed line in the NCAA tournament. Should have gotten that one. No way we were beating Auburn in Birmingham. I mean, they were just superior at basically every position. So there's no shame in losing that one, even losing badly the way Purdue did. But you asked for one thing, and maybe something that's changed since that Auburn game, the fact that Purdue's done a better job of taking care of the basketball. 22 turnovers in the last 3 games combined, and all 3 have been victories. Now, with a grain of salt, those 3 teams were Toledo and Minnesota and Northwestern. Outside Northwestern, not really teams that are known for heating the ball up and coming away with a lot of steals. But you got to start somewhere, and that's a good place to start because the turnovers were just, what a major eyesore they were for this team. That Penn State loss, Purdue had 32 points given up off of turnovers. You can't. You're not winning. I don't care who you're playing. You're not winning a game on the road in the Big Ten if you give the other team 32 points. I mean, that's just like starting the game off 32-0. So that area has improved, and Purdue's rebounding has improved. Now, is Purdue going to be a plus 12 on the glass like they've been the last 2 years when they had Zach Edey per game? No, you're not going to do that. Purdue just isn't built that way right now. But if Purdue can just stay even on the glass, which is where they've been lately, I think Purdue's like plus 1 on the glass right now per game average. That's miles ahead of where they were the first 6, 7, 8 games of the year. So those 2 areas have improved, and because of that, Purdue's has had some more success here.
It's Rob Blackman, Boilermakers, Rutgers, coming up later on tonight. Tip time from Jersey is at 6 o'clock. Defensively speaking, we'll go back to the Toledo game. 64, 61, and 61 of those rejoining of the Big Ten conference games, Minnesota and Northwestern, as we saw. We get a Boilermaker squad on the defensive end that has ratcheted things down here recently.
Been better, certainly in that category, and just been a little grittier, to steal the Matt Painter word. He was not, for those that listen to our radio broadcast, whether it was the pregame interview or postgame interview, especially after Auburn and Texas A&M, he kept using the word grit, and this team just wasn't gritty enough, not to certainly win at a high level. Purdue has been a little grittier, been a little bit tougher in those areas defensively and rebounding, and that has made a difference. Again, John, basketball. This is not a Purdue team that's just going to lock you up and hold teams to 55, 60 points a game. They're not Houston, and that's not how Purdue is built. But they can certainly be better than they were early in the season defensively. And again, they are making strides there. They're still not great, but at least they're making some strides. And the great irony, you have a Rutgers team tonight that's averaging 78 points a game. They are not typically known as a high-flying offensive team, but they are one of the better scoring teams in our league. So they'll be at home tonight, obviously. Again, 78 points a game. This is going to be a real test for Purdue to see just indeed how improved they are defensively.
Yeah, the one thing Rutgers does not do as well as what we used to know them to do, Steve Pikiell's team does not play defense nearly as well. At least they have not shown that so far this season. I think Braden's over, 25 per, certainly in the last 3. Big Ten player of the week here most recently. So maybe a little bit of a stride as we change the calendar for the Purdue guard going in.
And the assist numbers have also been up there. 34-12 against Toledo, 20-10 against Minnesota. I think 24-10 against Maryland. I'm talking points and assists. So it's not as if he's had to all of a sudden take on a major scoring load, and because of that, he's not distributing the ball to others. He is still doing that, which has probably been even more impressive for what he's done. But I would go back to what you said about Rutgers defensively. This is very un-Steve Pikiell-like. Their adjusted defensive efficiency numbers 96th in the country. I can't think of the last time. I know they've never been that low, at least when Steve Pikiell's been coaching them, as far as adjusted defensive efficiency, down around 100. I mean, that is just that's just not very Steve Pikiell-like. But look, he's playing a lot of young guys, man, and it's kind of similar to what Purdue's had to learn with a young team. These young guys, they're not normally real interested in giving a great effort on the defensive end. So you kind of got to do your best to coax it out of them. But yeah, it is. I guess that's probably the one thing about this Rutgers team that surprises me the most. They haven't been very good defensively up to this point of the season, but they've been much better offensively, which again is very un-Steve Pikiell-like.
Rob, one final thing before I let you go. Give me one Boilermaker, because you see all this, you see the practices as well, that has shown signs, shown spots, but has to become consistent for this team to be even more of a factor in this conference full of 9,000 teams.
Well, I would give you two, and they're basically the same player in Miles Colvin and Camden Heide. When Purdue went to San Diego and played at a really high level, won that tournament out there, Miles had the game-winning shot against Ole Miss at the buzzer, but, he also had 20 points in that game. I think people forget that. Cam did the same thing out there, had a great game in that first game against North Carolina State. I think he had 15, in that game against NC State. So those guys are playing really well right around Thanksgiving time. And then ever since Purdue's come back from San Diego, they just haven't offensively, they haven't found their groove again. If either one of those two, doesn't need to be both. It'd be great if it was. But if either one of those two could get back in their groove offensively, Purdue could be well on its way to winning a lot of games here. But I think it really comes down to those two guys. Hey,
the 6 o'clock tip time tonight will get you back home in Zionsville at a decent hour, will it not?
Yeah, I'm not mad about that. We've played out here a few times in my career, John, where we've had the 9 p.m. tip in New Jersey. So I'm not bad about the 6 p.m. tip. That's for sure, dude. Man,
hey, we got any feel on the new direction of the football program? Any waves that you're feeling up in West Lafayette?
I'm such a bad one to ask because I spent this whole past summer, John, telling all the Purdue fans when I was on the speaking circuit how improved we were going to be in football this year. And we won one game.
Oh, no.
So I might not be the guy to ask.
I've been there and done that, buddy.
I'm just going to keep my mouth shut this time around and see how it all plays out, so I don't sound like a complete idiot like I did this past football season.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was because you're up there so much, if there's a different feel whatsoever, or if it's just something that is going to have to be seen now to be believed.
Yeah, no, you're right. There certainly is a tangible difference. You can feel it just around the athletic facilities with Coach Odom and his staff. And look, the nice thing is you brought in a lot of coaches with a lot of experience and a lot of winning experience, right? Guys that have won wherever they've been. So we hope that continues. But right now, I'm optimistic. But I'm going to hold judgment until I see something on the field so I can have a better feel for what's going on here.
All right. Well, you'll hit it about 5P today on the network, and 6P is that tip time. You keeping buckets in line?
Trying my best.
Good luck with that.
Not easy to do. Luckily, he has 4 children at home, all under the age of 10. So he's pretty much kept in line by the family life. I don't have to do a whole lot from my end.
Wow, so that's really calmed down buckets a great deal, is what you're saying here.
Yes, it has. He's not quite the wild man he was in college. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, man. All right, well, hey, stay in touch. Safe travels back here. Tell everybody within the program we said hello, whether it's Matt or PJ or Buckets and everybody else. And we'll do it again very soon, Rob. Thank you.
Okay, bud. See you, John.
It's Rob Blackman, Boilermaker Radio Network. Rutgers tonight. That destination, 6P is the tip. Rob Blackman on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I just saw this from Townsend Bell, who has lost, his family has lost their home in the wildfires out in the Los Angeles area. And, yeah, it's just heartbreaking stuff. It really is. All the way around. And I'm not just talking about people that are recognizable, but just in general. Just the absolute disastrous proportions that are left with this ongoing disaster in general. But we like Townsend Bell here a great deal, and our thoughts certainly are with he and his family. Within the last, 20 or so minutes, he sent out a message and a couple of pictures on X, and it's just absolutely devastating. We are thinking about Townsend Bell. We are thinking about everybody, certainly, out there. It is absolutely brutal to see what's going on. Really is. All right, quick break. We shall return. Chris Ballard's presser tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. I'm going to get to some calls in a minute. BT Do, or as I like to reference him, BT Rockney, has checked in wanting more Notre Dame conversation. That's the first thing that I talked about on the show. And for Rockney, that was for you, my brother. You and Mike Manley of Manley's Irish Mud, 10th and Shadeland. So, yeah, Notre Dame, Penn State, Orange Bowl tonight, college football playoff semifinal number 1 is underway at 7:30. Kristen Ary, Pacers television voice, going to join us coming up at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. Pacers a winner last night, and I want to give more love to Thomas Bryant. Thomas Bryant has fit perfectly, and not just in the box score last night, but just in general. Talk more about that on the other side. With you at 239-1070, Mike Chappell, Colts conversation coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. And our friend Ian Eagle from TNT, our friend Ian Eagle from CBS. What else does Ian do? Does he do Amazon at times too? Or is that strictly Al Michaels? Did he not do something else?
I don't think he does Amazon.
Does he not? I thought he did something else.
He's the voice of the Final Four.
Voice of the Final Four, Ian Eagle. Now, should I ask him about the bourbon that we sent? Because he had an off-season to partake, right?
Yeah.
The Larceny bourbon stash that we sent there. We'll ask about that. 5:30 for Ian Eagle is going to join us right here. It's really weird, I know. Normally, we're out on the road with Larceny Bourbon Locks and Luna Azul Tequila Shots, but I'm in here with Captain Man Bun on a Thursday afternoon. I love you over there, brother, but not as much as a cocktail sitting there getting ready to make picks. Come on now.
You've really been harping on the man bun this whole week.
We're going to have to get rid of it. I'm just joking. No, we're not. I'm sure there's about 1,000 things you'd like to say the same damn thing to me about, so I get it. You don't like Captain Man Bun? It's all right, isn't it?
It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Right. Get on. Nah, it's just weird. No cocktails, no nothing on a Thursday. Quick break, we'll come back. To stream the app, HD Radio, we got an inbound snow, 2 to 4 inches predicted coming up tomorrow. AAA is your destination, AAA.com to become a member today. Tell Matt and Matt that I sent you. Again, always having your back, especially this time of year. AAA, that's AAA.com. Stream the app, HD Radio, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, Rob Blackman, Boilermaker Radio Network. That's a 6 o'clock start later on tonight. I would like to get into a deep and profound explanation about what's going on with Thad Matta and the Butler Bulldog basketball team right now. They're an absolute mess. I said this the other day in watching them, and this was in particular down the stretch of the Villanova game when they couldn't do a damn thing right. Nothing right on either end. And it's not like you're going to get overwhelmed by Villanova, which they did. And speaking of getting overwhelmed, in Providence last night was the Big East story-wise, certainly. They had some good pre-Big East wins, but the Big East has been an absolute disaster for Thad Matta and Butler. But you hate to see it. They're an absolute mess. There are just moments where these dudes, if you watch them play, they look like they've never met one another before. So players, coaches, all of it. And, I mentioned it looks like a group that just simply put is without answers right now. And I do know that I do reach the ears of a lot of Butler fans that are incredibly disappointed with it and expected more. But it has been a Big East mess so far. The end of the Nova game, it was almost worthy of turning it off. Because you go, good Lord. You couldn't even get a shot off. You'd turn it over. Jump. The jump pass. We're going to jump up and throw it to the wrong team. It was a disaster. Coming out of timeouts. If you remember when Brad Stevens, it seemed like every time he called a timeout, they came out of a timeout and scored, right? It seemed like in that Nova, it was like every time they called a timeout, out of the timeout, they turned it over immediately. So they have been a mess. IU last night gets a win at home over USC. I don't know if there is a tremendous deal of one big without Renew. All I can say is outside of that first, 8, 9, 10 minute stretch in the first half where they got down and looked like that they were still asleep. After that, and then consistently in the absence of Malik Renew, they look better and look better on the offensive end. And whether that's because that makes Ballo better because he's one dude on the interior and you don't have two bigs on the interior. Maybe that's not the way that it is, but that sure as hell the way that it looks. IU up next on the road at Iowa. We'll have Don Fisher on the show coming up tomorrow. If you look at the Big Ten Conference and about the 1,000 teams that are in it right now, you got Dusty May and Michigan at 4-0. You got Michigan State at 3-0. And IU now at 4-1. Illinois at 4-1. Boilermakers at 3-1, looking to go to 4-1 later on tonight. And then a bunch of 2-2s and everybody else. So you can make a little bit of distance. Think about IU, for example, 4-1. And I don't know, does Iowa have a game later on tonight? I'd have to look and see what Iowa plays. I don't think when did they play last? Check that and see. Yeah, they played Nebraska most recently, I believe. Did they not? With a win. So they get Indiana up next. But a good start. Good start in the Big Ten by IU. And Purdue will try to continue that coming up later on tonight. But, yeah, Butler. And, by the way, Indiana State in overtime losing at Valpo. Yeah. Both teams were 9-6. I know my level of expectations with the Fighting Trees would be down, but holy hell. Overtime at Valpo. Somewhere our good friend Tony Donahue is incredibly happy about that. Whereas, the host of this show, not so much. Sorry to say. Hey, shout out to Mike Manley, Manley's Irish Mutts, who apparently is listening right now. A lot of shout outs. I know that's going to be a spot for you to watch Notre Dame later on tonight. That is 100% Fighting Irish territory at 10th and Shadeland. Great place to watch the game as it kicks tonight in the Orange Bowl against Penn State at 7:30. Matt writes this. I was talking about Thomas Bryant. You have now the Pacers 2 games over 500 with that win over Chicago. They get Golden State coming up tomorrow night. But Thomas Bryant has fit absolutely perfectly. Matt surmises it as such. Thomas Bryant is in the same mold as T.J. McConnell. Both fit that blue-collar mentality in this area. Fan favorites for sure. Added bonus knowing Bryant played at IU. Good interview with Jake and Query and Company today. Thomas Bryant is just an incredible interview. But what he does is he's a talented player. And I always have believed in this old coaching philosophy. You have to have energy creators and not energy suckers. And Thomas Bryant is, no matter what facet of basketball we're talking about, is an energy creator. He's never going to weigh you down. He's never going to bring you down. I mean, hell, maybe he's going to miss a shot. Maybe on the defensive end, he doesn't get a whatever. That happens in every form of basketball. But what you can have would be an energy drainer. You can talk about Jimmy Butler being a fantastic player, and he has been over his career, and certainly in the postseason, a difference maker. He just kind of transforms into something else most of the time when he gets into the postseason. But when he checks out, my man checks out fully, and it is nothing but a drain and a drag. It, in fact, flushes your team and your organization and your fan base right down the NBA toilet. It is that bad. As good as he is, when he checks out of a situation and he crosses his arms and pouts and takes his ball and wants to go home, that ruins everybody. In that organization, it ruins everybody in the organization. And I remember in Philly, it was always about just not liking the winning mentality or lack thereof with Embiid, and that's why he wanted out. And yeah, in Miami, it's something, and in Minnesota, it was that. With the Bulls, it was that. He reaches a limit. He's got a shelf life. And we see a lot of coaches like that, too. There are a lot of coaches out there that have a shelf life, and they're really good. Like, I always thought Tom Thibodeau was a guy like this, where he is really going to be good. He's going to make you play D. He's going to make you be accountable for your game on both ends. But there's going to be some point when you reach the very end, and that's going to be that. And the shelf life, it's like a pint of milk. At some point, it's going to go past the date, and it's going to be sour, and you got to throw it away. Get rid of it. Pour it down the drain. I always thought Tom Thibodeau would be like that, and certainly in New York, you haven't reached that point yet. And Jimmy Butler's always kind of been that way to me. Even as much of a winning influence and what he can do in dictating terms for a winner. He will bring you down like an albatross around the neck if he wants to. And really, there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Notre Dame, Penn State coming up later on tonight. We got that for you, too. Pacers, Golden State tomorrow night. Kristen Ary is going to join us coming up at the top of the hour. Chris Ballard's press conference is tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'm assuming we're going to have that right here after Suebo in the morning, right? And then we'll have our busy Friday for you. Ian Eagle's going to be here coming up at the 5 o'clock hour, along with Mike Chappell. Lil Wayne tickets again today, right, James? Lil Wayne. Brian Regan, or is that complete now? Yeah, that's done. Lil Wayne tickets for the February show coming up at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. You can win your tickets right here. Another reason why you should embrace it. This show, this station, opportunity for entertainment, by God. That's what we do. Hey, speaking of which, we talked a little Indy Ignite. Their head coach was on the show yesterday, George Padgett. Awesome conversation. I had no idea basically what I was talking about. None. Which you guys are probably used to by now. But zero idea what I was talking about. He was outstanding. And let me tell you this. When I opened up the door for Side Out references, the film, and we both went through it and talked it up, That's when you take a conversation to the next level right there. That podcast, their inaugural season and their home debut at the Fishers Event Center, of which I'll be a part of. I think Jake is coming up on Saturday as well. Again, Saturday afternoon into the evening, Orlando in town. There is a lot of local notables on this particular roster. The Indy Ignite. Check that bad boy out coming up on Saturday, and I'll look for you guys up there. Hey, this reminder, too, by the way, as we take a break, the shop, Broad Ripple and Carmel, they have a new T-shirt. I mentioned that to Jake a little bit earlier, and if you're from IU, if you attended IU, if you're from Bloomington like me, especially if you're my age group, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and you'll love it. Tell you what that is coming up on the other side. Your calls as well at 239-1070. As I mentioned, Kristen Ary, Mike Chappell, Iron Eagle, and Lil Wayne tickets all still to come. Sit tight. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Ride with JMV.
Son, you got a panty on your head. You drive fast, eh?
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Pacers a winner last night. 2 games over 500. Golden State coming up on Friday at Cambridge Fieldhouse. You go back-to-back, home and home with Cleveland. Cleveland looked good against Oklahoma City last night. If you watched any of that or the tail end of that after the Pacer game, OKC is the most legit in the West. And people are asking about the Cavaliers, whether or not it's deep enough into the season to legitimize what they have done at this level. And if you watch them play, you can easily see that is the case. That's coming up Sunday, and there's a Sunday and Tuesday. Make sure that Tuesday one right there is right, too, about the Pacers and the Cavaliers. I know the first one is coming up on Sunday. Golden State, however, at Cambridge Fieldhouse, and Trace Jackson-Davis on tomorrow's show. Discussion about the blue and gold with Kristen Ary coming up at the top of the hour. Mike Chappell and Ian Eagle will be here coming up after 5. Meantime, 239-1070. Marcus is going to lead this show off today. Hello, Marcus.
Hey, what's up, JV?
Marcus, what's happening?
You brought up Tom Thibodeau, and it couldn't help me shake the fact that him and Dusty Baker may or may not be the same people.
You're talking about in terms of shelf life? In terms of shelf life?
Yeah. They just wear everybody out, man.
Yeah, and you know what? It is more prominent today because you just get hired as a coach or an executive. You just simply, it's not like the Colts and you get stinking 9 years, right, to decide
it's
something.
Definitely different.
So it is, in most places, is incredibly different. And sometimes it doesn't even take, that type of personality to get your run so quickly or have a shelf life. So it's just a way in which it is in terms of a lot of positions in sports now. What's that?
Mark Pryor comes to mind.
The
late Kerry Wood.
They're just it seems like more times than not the days of Bobby Cox being your manager for a decade plus and things like that are kind of just complete unless you're with the Colts, and then you can hang around mediocre or below and continue to move forward making decisions and having press conferences tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., I guess.
Weighs on you a little different.
Yeah, exception to the rule. There are some things that I can look at as to why snap judgments after a year are made in Vegas or after 2 years in Tennessee, but I also live by, if Marcus, you realize there's an issue, to prolong that issue and not do something about it only sets your organization back, and we've seen that around here, and there are other teams, other organizations that refuse to want to do that and make that judgment and move on.
And we've definitely seen the fourth or fifth 12th year quarterback, essentially.
Yeah, it's
the Rolodex.
It is something, no doubt. Marcus, I appreciate your call, man. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Yeah, I understand what's going on in Vegas with the ownership thing. Now, Tennessee's a little bit different because what's the owner, Amy Strunk or whatever her name is? They've been all over the ice, and they made a mistake with Vrabel. But that was, I think, a large part about John Robinson, and Vrabel was pissed because they traded, if you remember, during the draft, A.J. Brown, which was awful. And then you're just kind of left with what you had the past 2 years with Rand Carthon. But you recognize something's not going to work, especially when you're drafting number 1 overall and you make a change. That's what Tennessee did this week. That's what Vegas did the past 2 days. Christo Man before the break at 239-1070. Hello, Christo Man.
John, this is my debut call on your daytime show. I try to sneak in a request on occasion on your Saturday night.
What was the last song you requested, Christo Man?
Good Lord, now you got me. You didn't play it. That's all I know.
Man. Did I not?
It's all good, though.
Was it a bad song?
Well, from my perspective, it wasn't. I can't remember what it was, though. Now you got me.
I'm trying to think the ones, somebody, and I felt bad. I played something else for her. I had a lady. I had a lady request a Nazareth Larceny Bourbon double shot And I go, man, that's going to be like 15 minutes of music right there. That's going to take forever.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So, but I got her with something else. What do you got, Crystal Man, on this show?
I am trying to wrap my head around looking at this whole Ballard and Steichen rehire, or not rehire, but going forward.
Yes.
From Irsay's perspective. I'm trying to, because everybody's bitching about it, but I'm trying to look at it from Irsay's angle. What is he seeing that we're not? And what's driving him to keep this bus going forward where everybody else is on a totally different page?
I think the only logic in this is if you now put everybody, and I hate using this term, Crystal Man, everybody on the same timeline. And then if things go haywire again next year, then everybody goes. Just like I suggested everybody should go this year. But I just think I'm in front of it right now, believing that this isn't going to work and you need to do something new. And Jim is waiting. And now everybody's going. I would assume that's the only logic that I would have. And I'm not in favor of that particular logic, but that would have to be, I think, something that at least those out there that, like me, don't believe in the path right now would feel would be reasonable.
He's definitely not carrying the Robert Irsay gene because he would have pulled the plug probably.
Well, I mean, he had that in 2022, man. 2022, he goes, okay, we're going to do all this. But, yeah. So,
any word on the reschedule for Ballard's press conference? I haven't heard.
10 a.m. tomorrow morning. You can hear it right here on the Fan. You got it.
All right. I'll tune in.
Crystal Man, I'll talk to you coming up on Saturday night, too.
You got it, my man.
Little late start for me, by the way. After the Indy Ignite event, I'll probably start around 7 or so on Saturday. Quick break, we'll come back. Little Wayne tickets, don't go anywhere. Kristen Ary, voice of the Pacers, other side, AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
JMV does not suck at all.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
James over there, I'm John. Rob Blackman, Boilermaker Radio Network. Purdue and Rutgers. Jersey Mike's. You a big fan of Jersey Mike's over there? Jersey Mike's Arena in New Jersey. Did you watch The Sopranos when it was on? Do you remember there was a bit of a storyline with The Sopranos regarding Rutgers? Because Jackie Jr., I think, started out at Rutgers, Meadow Soprano, went to Columbia. Jackie Jr. went to Rutgers. And I believe that Christopher Maltasani, on the advice or the tip, if you will, of Jackie Jr., robbed a charity concert at Rutgers in an episode of The Sopranos. Are you deeply rooted enough for The Sopranos to know any of this?
So that's actually a show that I just started getting into.
Good for you.
It's pretty good.
Oh, it's awesome. Absolutely. It's one of those, too, where you got to go back a bunch and watch to see what the hell David Chase is talking about here. But I believe that was a storyline maybe for an episode or two that was centered around Rutgers. There was an episode where Eric Mangini ate in that Italian restaurant. You know,
the one that
Artie's Italian restaurant, yeah. And James Gandolfini, Tony Soprano, referenced him because I think he had one good year. It was his rookie season as head coach of the Jets, who were in line for another head coach, Eric Mangini. Was it not a good one, if memory serves? But Tony Soprano references him as the man genius. What was his rookie season with the Jets?
They went 10-6, second in the AFC East, and they lost to the Patriots in the wild card game.
So what were the seasons after that?
2007, he went 4-12, and then 2008, he went 9-7.
So he was no longer the man genius, but in an episode of The Sopranos, there was a cameo of Eric Mangini, who was referenced as the man genius.
So you can specifically kind of figure out exactly when that episode was filmed based off of that reference.
There's no doubt about that, yeah. I don't know why that occurred to me with Rutgers and Purdue later on tonight, but it did with a couple of episodes of The Sopranos. 239-1070. If you're on hold, I'll get back to you on the other side. 5 o'clock hour. Mike Chappell, Iron Eagle. Iron Eagles got the wild card game in Houston coming up this weekend, correct? On CBS?
Yeah, CBS.
Yeah. Iron Eagle at 5:30 today. And Lil Wayne tickets, Gainbridge Fieldhouse in February coming up for you. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, he is a friend of the show, the voice of the Pacers on Pacers TV. We should remind folks, with Kristen Ary joining us right now, that you guys are going to make your debut tomorrow night on Channel 13, correct?
Yes, it'll be the first of 5 games that will be simulcast. It'll be our FanDuel Sports Network telecast on Channel 13 tomorrow night. And I know we're excited about that for those that have not been able to watch, if you have YouTube TV or, if Comcast, put it up. I mean, people have been able to watch, again, but you've got to get the app, those types of things, and many people have, and we appreciate that. And, I have DirecTV Stream, and it's there. You have DirecTV, but this is a great opportunity for those that have not watched to watch tomorrow night on Channel 13. It'll be our usual FanDuel Sports Network telecast, and it'll be the first of 5. I think the second game is in L.A. against the Lakers in February, and then 3 games in March, a home game with Dallas, and then road games at Philadelphia and Milwaukee. So 5 games coming up on Channel 13, and so if you haven't watched the Pacers or making it very easy for you as an add-on tomorrow night to watch the Pacers in Golden State.
So what you're saying is that tomorrow night, and really nothing against the Princess of Ice Cream at all, but tomorrow night is going to mark the most exciting moment on Channel 13 WTHR since I vacated the premises on Weekend Sunrise many years ago, correct?
Yeah, I remember coming in a few times how many years ago was that?
I think I went from 06 through 09. It was weird. I was done with that about the same time as I was done with NDE, and then 6 months later started here. So I think Indy and that kind of, and they went from a 4-person studio weekend sunrise show to a 2-person show. So it was at the time me and Jeremy Brilliant and the former Chris Schubach and Nicole Masincic were doing stuff at the time, and then it went from 4 to 2 because they're cheap ass, and now it's even cheaper now. So yeah.
Well, we're looking forward to.
I'm very happy for you, though. I'm sorry. The cheap ass thing is the way that it is, though. I understand completely. So.
We are looking forward to bringing those games to people that might not have watched the games this year, and it's an exciting time.
Yes.
Pacers playing well right now. They're 11-4 through their last 15, and that's been really good to see.
No, and you're right, and that's the thing that we should talk about is it's going to give the opportunity to those that have not been able to see the Pacers a little window to watch them, and people around here that haven't seen Trace Jackson Davis play, maybe, with Golden State coming into town, the former Center Grove and IU product. So, yeah, it's a good thing. I love the fact that they're doing that. I really do.
Yeah, you could have some minutes tomorrow night. And, again, we do not know Miles Turner's situation. He missed last night due to illness. And Thomas Bryant, the former IU standout, stepped right in and had 22 points and 8 rebounds. So you could see a little bit of IU versus IU tomorrow night. 2 former centers, Trace Jackson Davis, who's coming in off a 19-point game, his season high, I think the last game against Miami. And then Thomas Bryant, who had a season-high 22 last night. So you could easily see both of those guys going against each other tomorrow night.
It's been weird out there for Golden State. They started out well and then kind of hit the skids, and Trace saw his clock, kind of minimized as to the way that it started, and Looney played a lot more. And then most recently, it kind of seems like he's getting that time on the floor back. But that's been a team that started out really well that has been searching, and they've already decided to dive into, the trade market with Dennis Schroeder that they brought in almost a month ago now, trying everything in what is a tough Western Conference, to say the least.
Yeah, one of their issues, they just played 8 of their last 9 at home, and that started with the Pacers back on a couple of days before Christmas, and they lost 5 of those games at Chase Center. I mean, the Pacers have never lost at Chase Center. They've won 6 straight, but counter that is Golden State's had all kinds of success at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Last year, Steph Curry came here and scored 42 and hit 11 threes. So, yeah, it's been an interesting run for Golden State. They'll be in the second night of a back-to-back. They're in Detroit tonight. They've got a number of injuries. Kuminga is out. Gary Payton Jr. is out. And I guess the biggest question will be to see how they approach tonight and what that means for tomorrow night as far as, who plays and who sits. So that'll be something to watch tonight. They tip off at about 7 o'clock tonight in Detroit. So
the Pistons have won 5 straight. 8-2 in their last 10, but obviously we saw that horrific injury to former Boilermaker Jaden Ivey. What have they looked like? I've not seen them since, and you get a little bit of eyeball to that and Golden State on this off night tonight. What do the Pistons look like? Because surprisingly enough, they remain a game above 500 in the Eastern Conference presently.
Yeah, they've got an all-star point guard in Cade Cunningham who has really played well. I mean, he's big. I mean, when you're out there on the floor with him, we're standing there, Quinn and I, to do our stand-up, and he's just mammoth. I mean, how big he is. And I said on opening night when the Pacers had to rally in the fourth quarter to beat him, I said, this is going to be a much better team because they're a year older, and they added 3 veterans that I think really helped them. Malik Beasley came over from Milwaukee, part of a playoff team last year. Tim Hardaway Jr. was in the NBA Finals last year with Dallas, and Tobias Harris came over from Philadelphia. And that's what a young team needed. Now, you're right. I mean, it's just so sad to see Jaden Ivey go down for the year, but they're a pretty deep team, and like you said, they've won 5 straight. They're just behind the Pacers. Indiana's now 6th in the East. Detroit, I think their goal into the year was, can we make a push to get into the play-in and give ourselves a chance? And they've been very, very impressive, and the Pacers will see them. In fact, a week from tonight, we'll be in Detroit to see the Pistons, because you've got Golden State tomorrow. and then you've got a home and home with Cleveland, and I think everybody knows how good Cleveland is. They've only lost 4 games. You've got the Cavaliers on the road on Sunday, and then next Tuesday is a game that we won't do. It's a TNT game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse against the Cavaliers. So, a number of games, important games coming up before the team will head to Paris for a couple of, I want to say, road games, basically. One is an Indiana Pacers home game, but they're going to be playing Wemby, and I'm sure the French will have a huge advantage for the San Antonio Spurs over there.
Are you going to Paris?
We are not. We are going to be heading to St. Louis, and we will do the games from the studio in St. Louis.
Okay.
It's what we did a couple of years ago when the team went to India. We did the games from St. Louis, and it's just a matter of semantics and technology and all those things in how you do it. And they have a beautiful studio over across from Busch Stadium, FanDuel Sports Network Midwest, and so that's where we'll do it. So, I want to be up front. We won't be there, but it was sort of like COVID, John. We did for 2 years. We did all the games that were road games remotely, and hopefully we do it a way you can't tell. But we will be doing from St. Louis.
It's Kristen Ary, voice of the Pacers on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Golden State tomorrow. This reminder, normally on the FanDuel network you can catch Pacer broadcasts, but for the first time you'll also get it on Channel 13 WTHR coming up tomorrow night, which I happen to think, for those that just don't get to see a lot of Pacer games, pretty damn cool. I did want to ask you another thing before I get into the Pacers themselves here, Chris. We were talking about the Pistons and Jaden Ivey going down for the season. The Heat and the soap opera, the Jimmy Butler, you kind of wonder how that's going to weigh on that team. The Magic have a major loss for the season, but also are getting Banchero back here as well. What do you think the Eastern Conference is going to look like, you think, over the next month with a couple of those teams I just mentioned right there?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you've had, basically even New York to an extent has jumped up to that top group, but clearly Cleveland and Boston 1 and 2, and then you have Orlando and New York 3 and 4, and really from 5 on down, 5 to 10, 5 to 11. You've got, either teams a couple of games over 500 or a couple of games below 500. So I think it's going to be fascinating to watch. Injuries, illnesses, all those kinds of things, play into it. That's why it was so important last night on a night you don't have Miles Turner against a Bulls team who had won 4 of 5, and Thomas Bryant steps in and does such a good job. So that's going to be the key, I think, each and every night for all of these teams is if you have guys out because of injury or illness, who can step up to not allow you to lose anything? And I think you got to give a great credit to the front office, Kevin Pritchard and his staff, for the way they've built the roster with a lot of depth. I mean, they were playing guys that they had no idea that they would play in Johnny Furphy and Quentin Jackson, and Enrique Freeman started a game. I mean, those guys were not expected to play heavy minutes, and there was about a 2-week period where they had to play a lot of minutes because you didn't have Nesmith, Nembhard, or Ben Shepherd. So I think the Pacers weathered that pretty well, and it's just now trying to be very consistent and build on what they've built over the last 3 weeks.
Pacers of the season, 2 games above 500, 20 and 18. Good for the 6-hole right now as it stands in the Eastern Conference. Their voice, Kristen Ary, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. You and Quinn talk about this all the time. I've also mentioned this. You describe him as the glue, and I have said regardless of what happens within the box score, there is nobody more important to the success of this Pacer team than Andrew Nembhard. Why does his game translate so favorably for this team well beyond the box score?
Well, I think 2 things. He's a very, very good defender and a connector. We like to say he's a connector, and that's not even fair to him because he's much more than that. But he does it on both ends. I mean, he's a guy that usually, takes the stiffest defensive challenge. I mean, think about over the last month. He's had to deal with Lillard and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Zach LaVine. I mean, you just run down the list of all the top scorers that you play against, and he's the guy that you have to deal with. And I think his return and his ability to defend has rubbed off on the rest of the team. I mean, this team is so much better defensively. Are they great? No, but they just need to be better, and they're getting their hands on balls, their deflections. I think in the last 10, 12 games, they're holding teams to around 109 points per game. And in this day in the NBA, that's very, very good. And then on the other hand, he allows Tyrese Halliburton, when necessary, to play off the ball. And he's a guy that can attack and go downhill. We saw that happen last night in the fourth quarter when a 34-point lead all of a sudden got down to 14 or 16. Andrew Nembhard was the guy that scored about 7 points in a row. He can get his own shot. He can penetrate. He can look for his teammates. So I just think he's been a wonderful addition. It's a reason why the Pacers felt very fortunate 3 years ago. They got him with the first pick of the second round. They gave him a 4-year contract, which doesn't happen with second-round draft picks. And then they give him an extension in the offseason because they know how valuable he is. I did a post-game event with him last night with our season ticket holders. He was terrific. He loves being here. He loves his teammates. And he's just a guy that brings out the best in everybody. And I think that's the best you can say about a player.
It's Kristen Ary joining us. Thomas Bryant, we know him very well from his days at IU. And the enthusiasm has always been there. And he has been, to me, as perfect as I felt Obi was a year ago and still is with this team, both on the floor, off the floor, on the bench, no matter what. He's just one of those guys that's not an energy drainer. He brings it every single moment, regardless of his role. And you really saw that in a step-up situation without Miles last night.
Yeah, no question. I've been very impressed. I had not been around him, of course, prior to him coming to the Pacers. Had always heard a lot about him and always heard he was a terrific teammate. And that's what the guys have said, and that's what he has said. I mean, it's been mutual. I mean, he came right in, was welcomed into this group. It's a very easy group, I think, to be a part of. They're a very positive group. Even when things were not going as well as you had hoped early in the year, it's a group that's still stuck together. They looked out for each other. You can tell that on the bench. And so, really no surprise. If you look at what the Pacers have done over the last few years, when they brought somebody from the outside in, Neesmith and Toppin, they've all fit in. And I think that's a testament to what Rick Carlisle and his staff do, the team building that the front office does. I just think it says a lot about the whole organization, about how they put things together and how people want to be here. And Thomas Bryant is really excited to be a part of the Pacers.
Yeah, no doubt about that, too. And this is more like, and I know that they're healthy. And by the way, we still await Aaron Neesmith, and there's not been an official timetable. I know that at some point, early December, it was tossed around maybe middle December, maybe around Christmas. Certainly that has been delayed. Do we have any idea? And you can see these practices when they do practice. I don't think they practice very much, especially this time of year. But is he amping up these pregame workouts to where maybe it's on the near horizon for his return?
I think so. I mean, the more we see him, before the game, he's usually out there. He's the last guy out there. So usually it's somewhere between 6:15 and 6:30 that he's going through a pretty good workout with the player development people. And people will say, well, it was a sprained ankle. It was about as severe a sprained ankle as you can have. And I think we all know, those of us who follow sports, those of us who have played sports, there are various grades of sprained ankles. There's minor ones and there's major ones. And sometimes they'll oftentimes say it's better to break a bone, right, than to really have a bad ligament problem. And so this was a significant ankle injury that he suffered in New Orleans when he landed on Willie Green, the head coach of the Pelicans' foot. And so I think there was some real concern early on, even though he's missed 30-plus games, it was even going to be worse than it was. So, hopefully he's back soon. I know he's ramping up the workouts. They will make sure that, he is ready to go when it is time, and he will just be another valuable addition to this team.
So Kristen Ary, who is the voice of the Pacers TV, tomorrow night, their normal FanDuel location. And then also for the first time, you can check him out on Channel 13 WTHR coming up tomorrow night as well. And I'd be remiss without telling you once again, and you and I talked off the air last week, because I know you lost your mother. She passed away here recently, and I wanted to give you, again, our heartfelt condolences to the loss of your mother, not only to you, but to your entire family. I know it's been tough.
Well, I appreciate that. That's, I think many people realized on Saturday night when Pat Boylan came on the air and I wasn't there that something was up. And I think a lot of people knew, but some people didn't. But, yeah, we lost our mom on Christmas night. She would have turned 90 4 days later. And, the last couple of years have been a struggle. She was in a nursing home, and her physical and mental health wasn't great. But, she was still here. And, she and my dad were, it's the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. My dad, a longtime basketball coach, a high school teacher. We had just a great support system at home with our 5 kids. And it was tough. But, I know even these last, months, while she might not have really known what was going on, I know that the nursing home would turn the games on and try to bring her joy in that way. So I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the Pacer fans and just all those that have reached out either in person or by text or by social media. It's much appreciated. Our family really appreciates all the thoughts and prayers. And just like my dad 7 years ago and my mom now, she would say, hey, move on. Represent the name well, and that's what we'll all do.
Well, we're thinking about you, buddy. So always enjoy our conversations. But, when I heard the news, I just obviously thinking about, because, my relationship very tight as well as yours with my mom. So my mom watches you guys every single game. I mentioned this off the air with you last week, too. My mom, for whatever reason, gets free NBA. Is it season pass or whatever that is?
League pass. She must be living the life.
She gets league pass for free, and I don't even get it. You know how much that pisses me off? I don't know why that is.
She must be a really special lady when she can get NBA league pass and has no idea why.
No. And she will ask me seriously about, I stayed up and watched Golden State in Utah, and I'm going, what? Okay.
Is that where you and your son, watching late night games together, you were a Gonzaga fan because that rubs off from your mom?
Maybe it's, I think with her now more, I think she dozes off during the day and then is up half the night.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it right there. But she just asked me about these random late games.
If she calls you up and says, hey, that John Collins of Utah, he had a really awesome dunk last night.
Well, she watches Trace a lot. Yeah. She likes Trace a great deal. But I was going to tell this to Obi sometime. Actually, I was going back and forth with Chad Buchanan. I was asking. I sent this to JJ, and he didn't respond. So I asked Chad. Pascal had on these Nikes. I think they were KD 17s for the City League. For the City Edition uniforms that were turquoise. And they look like the most comfortable basketball shoe I've ever seen, honestly. He had them on in Brooklyn the other night, and I couldn't find him online. I found something that looked like him, but I couldn't find his. So I actually texted Chad, and I said, hey, can you ask the equipment guy where you get these, because I want to try a pair of these out.
Yeah. Do you think it would allow you to jump like Obi?
No. Well, and Pascal, Pascal had these on. I am... right now, I just want the most comfortable shoe possible. And I don't care what brand it is, nothing. And I was watching him the other night, and I go, those things look incredibly comfortable. So that's my quest right now, is to find a pair of those shoes. And I guess I've gone as far as Chad and the equipment managers to try to see if I can find out a location where I can track him down.
Well, here I was going to offer this. The one last thing I was going to say, with my mom's passing, what I think, the last thing she did was she brought us all together, right? That's the biggest, family came together.
Yep.
Some cousins flew in from all over the country that I hadn't seen in a while. And the other thing that happened, Eddie Gill stopped by the service. My son, Evan, who lives in Myrtle Beach, is when he was a kid, Eddie Gill was his favorite player.
Heck yes.
And they had never met until Saturday. And that I said to somebody, I said, that was my mom. My mom got Eddie and Evan Denari together, and it was pretty cool to see.
I always joke with Eddie and say my favorite player is Harold the Show Arsenault. Now, actually, we have a common thread. There's a kid from Greene County. He went to Eastern. Mike Burris, who is the associate head coach at IU Indy with Paul Casaro, his younger brother Clint played a couple of seasons at Weber State.
Okay.
So, yeah, he went to JUCO, I think, first, and then ended up out at Weber State. So we kind of got the whole Greene County common bond there with Weber State a little bit. But I always kind of joke about that with Eddie Gill. It's awesome. I love bringing up moms, though. And my mom loves Obi, and loves Thomas Bryant. And for some reason loves Marcus Freeman, the Notre Dame head coach, too. So
well, and what was really cool about that trip to Brooklyn, John, was that the moms were on the trip. That's something that the
awesome.
Pacers do, and they've done for years. And, I'm on the bus with Tyrese's mom and Obi's mom, and, I mean, it was just fantastic. And then to see those guys go over to their moms after the game, I mean, it just –
Hey, mine is calling right now. Seriously. Hey,
she's good.
Hey,
she's letting you know that there's she's going to watch John Collins and the Utah Jazz
Hey,
tonight.
Mom, I'm on the air right now. I'm talking to Kristen Ary. Say hi. Say hi. Hey, Mom, are you there? Yeah. Let me. I'll call you right back. Okay. As soon as I get off there. All right. There she is. She's right there. Occasionally she'll forget that I have a talk show between 3 and 6. All right, buddy. Hey, my best to you and the family, buddy.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. All right, take care.
It's Kristen Ary right there, voice of the Pacers. Pacers TV tomorrow night. You can also see on Channel 13 WTHR, which is a very cool thing. Pacers 2 games above 500. 6-hole right now in the Eastern Conference. They get Trace and Golden State coming up tomorrow night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Quick break, we'll come back. I'm going to find out what Cheryl wants right here. Come back with you. Ian Eagle, Mike Chappell, Lil Wayne tickets, all still to come on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
And you're nothing but a chameleon, lemon-headed, coward, terrorist, and I'm after you, buddy. You're going to pay for it. Good night.
Thank you very much, sir.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Ian Eagle, along with Mike Chappell, coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Jeremiah says, impeccable timing for your mom to call during the interview with Kristen Ary. My mom was in a ditch when she called, and I got to give a shout out. And this is how it goes in Greene County with me. I got to give a shout out to Dustin Hayes. Dustin Hayes is married to the sister of the wife of Dusty May, the head coach of Michigan, and that's who got him out of the ditch. That's how that works right there. So, yeah, shout out to Dustin Hayes and a shout out to Dusty May and his family. That's great. So, yeah, as I mentioned, sometimes it's forgotten that I have to be on the air between 3 and 6, but I'm glad that she did call right there. But that was the reason behind it. She was in a ditch. And it's interesting to note, I don't think Easton Green has been to school all week. And they're not going tomorrow either because I think that there's more snow on the inbound. So I think they've been doing the e-learning thing all week long. I don't think they've been all week. But, yeah, she was in the ditch. She was in the ditch, and the family of Dusty May, the Michigan coach, got her out. That's how it works. All right, Mike Chappell. Yeah, hey, by the way, too, for those that have mentioned, somebody had mentioned, hey, my daughter plays in the Carmel basketball program. Is your daughter going to be playing later on tonight? It's Carmel and Center Grove down at CG. I am going to go. I don't know how much clock that my daughter's going to get on the JV as a freshman, but that is the matchup later on tonight. So I will hustle ass and see if I can't get down there, and I'm going to take my gear and maybe play a little bit afterwards, too. How about that? So, yes, thank you for that message. I believe I will be down there coming up later on tonight. Lil Wayne tickets a little bit later on. Chris Ballard's press conference. Sick yesterday, moved until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'm assuming you can hear that right here. I've been suggesting that we'll have it. I'd like to think so, right? Somebody's going to hang around, play that thing. Tomorrow on The Fan, ask Todd and make sure that's accurate, but I believe that to be the case. 10 a.m. tomorrow morning here on The Fan, I would guess, but Chris Ballard's press conference will happen then. All right, Purdue and Rutgers, Rob Blackman, voice of the Boilermakers a little bit earlier. Remember, that's an early tip tonight at 6 o'clock from Rutgers. Boilermakers trying to go 4-1 in Big Ten conference play. 239-1070 is the number. Jim is up next today. Hello, Jim. How are you?
Fine, you?
Jim, fantastic, buddy. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good. Hey, I know I'm a little late to the Colts game here and venting on this, but first of all, I just want to say I heard you on Monday, and I appreciated what you were really representing the sentiment of fans, and then also for those of us who were at the game. And I'm a season ticket holder, and so you really hit a chord, and I appreciate that about you.
Thank you, man.
One of the things that from my lens, our family's been season ticket holders since '84, and me since the early 2000s. I couldn't even get home from the game until I was hanging out downtown. I got home. I was trying to say, okay, what do I want to tell the Colts? And then I see the tweet. Not only do I see the tweet, it came before the email to the season ticket holders. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you can't give the season ticket holders a special, little heads up, let alone the fact it was the same darn message as what was tweeted out to the public. No, thank you for being a loyal customer. No, thank you for all this stuff. We got the same message. And no offense to all the people who can't make it to the games. I know it's a big ask, but you would think there'd be a little tweak to the message to represent us paying season ticket holders, and so I had, I sent it to my rep, and he and I talked about it yesterday, but he understood where it's coming from, because I was furious about the lack of recognition that season ticket holders would have a different message. We deserve a different message, and the the quickness of which they released the statement to me just said that they made up their mind before they. It was made up before the game was played. And I'm like, did you watch that game?
And see, normally disappointment wise, Jim Irsay normally after a game like the Giants would be so disappointed, angry, furious, whatever. That but it did seem like that had been judged and the decision made even prior to the start of that final game, and that went over Jacksonville. I would agree.
I appreciate it. But hey, on the positive note, the Pacers are turning the corner. They're starting to look good. They handled business last night. So 2 games above 500. It seemed like they're running around a little bit more pep in there.
Jim, I am happy that you did go, and that was more. People made more notice about the empty seats, but I did notice those that were there because you had a couple of different things going on. I mean, you had the fact that you were watching a stinky out of the postseason again, disappointing team. And then you had the snowstorm coming in, too. So, I give you guys credit. I looked more at that than I did at the empties. Now, the Colts should look at the empties because they're going to have a whiteout T-shirt on the seat a lot of times this year if things don't turn recognizably with this team after deciding to go one more year with this.
Last comment, man. Being at that stadium, that was the most antiseptic, stale environment I have ever been in for a Colts game. I don't mean to be knee-jerk reaction, recency bias, but that was as cold an environment as I've been in. And I've been to the last games of that 2-12 seasons, or 2-14 seasons. That was bad.
It seemed like that was one of those games reincarnated from, the late 80s, early 90s right there. That's what it felt like. Yeah.
Totally was. All right, thanks, JMV.
Jim, thank you very much for the call. Very kind words, too. So I got this. Do I need a break here? What we got?
We will be carrying the press conference.
Well, there you go, buddy. Thank you. So I was all over that. I'll tell you what, before I read this, we'll go to Sean at 239-1070. Sean, welcome to the show.
Hey, JMV, how's it going?
Great, Sean. Go ahead.
Hey, I think the Colts were had the most one score losses. Do you think there were a couple, a tight end and maybe a couple players away from being a good team, or do you really feel like the fans want a total tear down of the team? Because with Richardson, a tear down with him would kill him any chances he's had. And I got another thing. Yeah. The last caller acts like season ticket holders are anything special. We all pay taxes. I don't know different than ours, and I'm just not understanding what you've been telling us all year that Ballard had another year. Why is everybody surprised? You just don't throw Richardson. If Ballard and them got kicked out, you're throwing Richardson. You're saying he's not good enough.
Yeah, that's basically it. That's how I have based my opinion on that.
I mean, did you really want them to do that? Do you think Anthony Richardson's not good? Because
I think that you're just delaying the inevitable with all this.
So you think Anthony Richardson will be
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to be what people expect him to be, or some believe he's going to be. Now, listen, I hope that I'm incredibly wrong, Sean, hopefully. But that's just my belief. And the evidence is on my side. So that's how I form it. I hope I'm wrong one of these days, but I just don't think I am. What's that?
What evidence?
What evidence? Well, either he's inaccurate or he can't play. What more evidence do you need?
I mean, I don't know if he's had
okay. Hey, no. I want to be fair to you, though, Sean. You tell me. I said this a little bit earlier this week, like The Wolf of Wall Street, if you've ever seen that movie. Sell me this pen. Sell me on why you think Anthony Richardson is going to be the quarterback, this elite level quarterback that people think or expect.
You don't have to be elite to win in this league. But anyway, I mean, okay, after the games he got back, the number one reason why I'm optimistic is because of the change we've seen in his feet work alone. Once he got his head into the game, he changed so much after he came back that he almost looked like a totally different quarterback. And that was not even a summer of training. I mean, you don't think he deserves one more try?
No. Don't get me. Hey, hold on a second, Sean. I understand because they have so few options out there why you would. But I, again, believe it's delaying the inevitable. And if you were to start all over again, I'd be fine with it. And, in fact, I think that's something you have to recognize who you are that I don't think the Colts recognize.
Well, I understand. Okay, JMV, I understand where you come, but you're kind of being condescending. 1 minute you're saying we're delaying the inevitable, but you believe he deserves one more chance.
No, because they don't have any options. What are the options?
Yeah.
I mean, hell, whatever.
What do we have to lose?
Yeah, you don't have any options. Like, my thought is, and I've said this all along too, you bring in, Sean, legit competition for him. And whether you call somebody like Justin Fields legitimate, whatever. But you got to bring in legit competition, and I don't think it's going to work. I said I'd be fine, and I think my path would be just go ahead and move forward. But clearly they're not going to. I understand why they're not with Richardson, and I understand to a degree why not with Steichen. Now, there's no understanding with Ballard. Somebody asked me, Sean, a little bit earlier, all right, so why do you think Jim Irsay felt compelled to come to that conclusion? What seems reasonable about it? And the only thing within reason that I could understand is if you put everybody now on the same timeline to where you wipe the slate clean if it doesn't work next year. That's the only thing I think that is within reason that you can do. Okay. But the problem with Jim is it's all worn out with Ballard because this is going into year 9, and it's basically the same old thing that it hasn't worked. So,
well, that's more, and I like the way you put that. As a fan, I could take that a lot better than what you guys are spouting out now.
And I want to get back to one more thing before I let you loose here. You mentioned that upon his return, you saw a lot more things to where you felt he was going to be a much better quarterback even without training camp. You do realize that the biggest reason that he was better upon his return after that 2-game punishment, whatever it was, because he was handed the ball and he was basically a running back. He was like running back too. And what we found out at the end of the year is he can't last doing that. Therein lies the problem. The best thing that he does right now, he cannot stay on the field doing, and that makes the situation, Sean, even worse.
That's fair. Hey, one more thing.
Yeah.
He doesn't. What's every good quarterback in the league have? A good tight end. He has no tight end.
No. And I mean, listen, there's no doubt about that. But I don't think magically that's going to help his accuracy.
And I remember everybody saying the same thing about Lamar his first couple years. He can't run. He's going to get hurt. He's going to be hurt his whole career, and he can't throw. That's all I heard about Lamar when he first. But that's all I'm saying. But I agree. I mean, I like the way you put that. I just don't like the way all of the fans are sounding so negative. Irsay had no choice. Like you just put the way you just.
Well, with Richardson, I mean, to me, he had a choice. He had a choice. But I will listen to the Richardson thing because of the lack of options. And because what the hell, you might as well. But honestly, there's not a lot of fans out there that want to hear that position that way because they've been through what the hell might as well for at least the last 4 years. And they're tired and they're worn out, and that's where they are. And that is what I truly understand.
I agree with that. Thanks, JMV.
You got it, Sean. Thank you for the call. Quick break. We'll come back. Top of the hour, Mike Chappell. Iron Eagles got the wild card game coming up this weekend in Houston. Iron Eagle joins us coming up at the 5 o'clock hour. Little Wayne tickets also coming up after 5. My mom is okay. She was in a ditch. The family members of Michigan head coach Dusty May, my good friend Dustin Hayes, helped her out of the ditch. So that's why she called in the 4 o'clock hour during the show as I was talking to Kristen Ary. We were talking at that moment about mothers, which was incredible timing. Quick break, we'll come back. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Ride with JMV.
Smokey, this is not Nam. This is bowling. There are rules.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Orange Bowl later on tonight. Notre Dame, Penn State for the right to play for a title. 7:30. So is Bowen really going Speedo if they win something or what? Did somebody suggest this, or is this Bowen's suggestion?
This is the first I've heard of
the
it.
Speedo thing.
Like he's going to show up to the studio in a Speedo?
Yeah, I guess. You going to wear a hat?
Probably. Those
are two of the hat-wearingest dudes in the history of hat-wearing dudes right there. There's nobody's hair getting washed any morning. Before Sweebo in the morning.
If he comes to the studio in a Speedo, is he going to, like, shampoo the chair after? Or?
Yeah. That's one thing. Can you imagine how mortified I'm going to be? His ass sitting down in a Speedo in this chair right here. Sean writes this, a different Sean, by the way. Let's just say the Colts go 17-0 next year. What would you do then? Did the problems just vanish? I'm going to tell you what. They go 17-0 next year, everybody's going to be kissing everybody's ass. 17-0 next year.
If they go 17-0, I'll show up here in a Speedo.
Everybody will be smooching everybody's rear end. Sean, if that were happening. Mike Chappell, a little bit more. Chris Ballard's press conference tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. We got it for you here on The Fan. Ian Eagle has the wild card matchup in Houston coming up this weekend. He joins us at 5:30. Little Wayne tickets also on the way next hour. Zero reason not to listen. Inbound Snowstorm, AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live, AAA.com. Become a member. Yeah, make sure they got your back just in case with the roads and the snow and the cold. Become a AAA member today, AAA.com. That's the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Oh, wait just a minute. Did anybody knock anymore?
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
So what do they say? Between 2 and 5 inches of snow? Is that the predictions? I don't think Eastern Green's ever going to go back to school again. All right. Me and the Indy Ignite. Yesterday, a great conversation with their coach. If you missed that, the podcast, 1075thefan.com. Professional volleyball hits the Fishers Events Center against Orlando coming up on Saturday, and they're going to have a pregame party and then some. I'll be up there in the afternoon on Saturday, so hopefully I will see you there. Actually, I got a text from a good friend of the show, the incredible like-minded thinker Sean Collinsworth, who is one of the Smiley Bros that knows that me in particular would be the best DJ in Indianapolis. So, yes, you and SPT and everybody up there for some cocktails on Saturday afternoon. And because of that, the JMV takeover delayed until probably around 7 o'clock or so. So I think Mel McMahon will take you up until 7, and then I should be there good to go, and then we'll be rocking like docking per usual on the JMV takeover on Saturday. Just a little bit delayed. There was some thought maybe I would move it to Friday, but I don't want to do it this early in the season, so we'll stay with it on Saturday. I'll just get there a little bit later than usual coming up. And again, go check out the Indy Ignite. And should be a fun product, the Fishers Event Center, which from what I hear from everybody's getting rave reviews right now. Iron Eagle, bottom of the hour on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59 joins us. You got your snow shovels and snow blower ready again?
Well, I had to pay to have ours done, and they finally got it. Did a great job. So now I had to get it cleared off so we could have room for more snow. So you know it is here.
I was figuring you probably want to hear that forecast of 2 to 5 here.
Well,
on the way
it's right in the wheelhouse of us driving out to the Colts complex for Chris Ballard's presser tomorrow. Hopefully it's not too bad in the morning, but yeah, I've lived here my entire life, and I've never grown fond of snow.
No, me
ice.
either. No, I liked it when, like, for example, at Eastern Green, they haven't been to school all week, and we didn't have to make up those days when I was in school, so we missed a ton. And especially when you had basketball games and when you missed school, but the basketball game was still on, it was a glorious time. And that was because of snow.
And look how you turned out.
Oh, man. I wouldn't want to be any other way right here. Hey, speaking of which, is there anything that Chris Ballard can say tomorrow that this Colts fan base right now is going to buy, a majority of them?
No. I don't know what it would be. This is just going to be one where you admit to the shortcomings. You admit that the expectations haven't been met, and they'll do everything in their power to make 2025 successful. I don't know what can be said. I really don't. When it doesn't go right, I mean, you just sort of stand there and take it. This is different, but I remember when Peyton would go through the 0-1s and make the playoffs and get beat, And one time maybe it was New England or something, and he just came in, still with his uniform on. He said, "Okay, guys, sort of like, let me have it. Just go ahead." And sometimes you just have to do that. I think he'll have to sort of say we need to tweak our blueprint for roster building, which means being active in free agency. And I mean more than Raekwon Davis and Joe Flacco. But no, immediately I don't know. I really don't know what can be said either by Chris Ballard or Shane Steichen, because it's just all going to be trust us. We know how that worked with Flounder in his car in Animal House. So I don't know.
Food King. Yeah.
They're in a position that they created themselves, and it's simply going to have to be fixed in 2025, or things will change. At some point, you just have to say, okay, it's not working. We've seen how a couple of franchises have gotten rid of GMs after a year or two. I mean, Tom Telesco was let go today. He was with the Raiders for 1 year, so that they want a major reset. So, and I do not want to hear from the fan base. I understand their anger and frustration, but don't give me this stuff where, well, you guys don't ask the tough questions. No, we ask the tough questions. They're just not answered to the satisfaction of the fan base or whatever. And at some point, you keep asking the same question, and all you're doing is being a dick, and you're being the story. So you ask the tough questions, and after 2 or 3 times, Chris Ballard won't dance around a lot tomorrow. He's going to stand there and take it because he has to. But to tell the fan base, patience, we're going to get this fixed. It's going to ring hollow, and everything they say will ring hollow until it works next year, or it doesn't, and then things will probably change.
Why do you think there was not a change this year? And by the way, you called this in full. I've been on the other end of the spectrum with my thought on what needs to be done. But what is this belief in what is going on, in particular from Jim Irsay to Chris Ballard? Is it about a belief, and can you identify it, or is it about convenience? What is this truly about, this belief to where, Mike, there is zero evidence in it, especially in the past 4 years? Why?
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking on our podcast yesterday that I'm a really good writer, and I'm a really good BSer. I can really spin some stuff. I don't know that I can spin the optimism on this franchise going forward with a straight face. I really don't think I can. But I think this goes back to when they named Shane Steichen head coach, and they decided on Anthony Richardson. And I think a lot of us wrote that these 3 guys are now tied together. And with Chris and Shane and Anthony Richardson, it either works together or it doesn't. And that's why I just think that the 2 options in my mind were, you give it 1 more year, and it's so hard, obviously, to give up on a 22-year-old quarterback who has tremendous talent, yet he can't stay healthy. And he's not – I think he's actually regressed as a passer. I really do. But I just don't think they're ready to give up on that. Second of all, what's your plan B? This is not a good year to be looking for a quarterback at all. So I really think this is, okay, these 3 guys, it's going to work or not with all 3 of them. And they'll give them 1 more year, which is probably on the growth of Richardson, the right thing to do. Although, again, I don't know what I can write on believing in Richardson other than, like I said, he's 22 and he's an immense talent. He's a dynamic runner. And he's a 47% passer, which you can't do that in the NFL. So I just think it's a case of the 3 of them are tied together. And, again, it works or it doesn't, and we'll know that in, this time next year.
Hey, Mike, would last year's quarterback class or next year's quarterback class, if it happened to fall in the spring of this year in the draft, what do you think decision-making circumstances would have been changed?
You mean if last
if it was more robust at that position in drafting this year, like it was a year ago, like it's supposed to be next year, would the position change?
Maybe, although it's to a point, 2 years on giving up on a quarterback, it's just hard to do. Although he's giving you a lot of reasons that it's not going to work. I told you I'm more concerned. Yes, the injuries are a concern without question. I'm more concerned that they had to bench him 2 games to kind of get his attention. I think that's a huge indictment. But if it was a better market, maybe. And again, let's say you're in the group that, like you want to blow it up. Then who is your quarterback next year? I mean, who? Justin Fields, maybe? You want Jameis Winston? I mean, really? There's nobody in the draft you're going to get to come in and play. So that's maybe that figured into it. I don't know that it did, because I think they're still believing that Richardson will be the guy. And if he is, what's crazy is if Richardson, can be that guy for the next 2 years. I mean, really be that guy. Can you imagine the contract he's going to get from Jim Irsay? It's going to be $60 million.
Here's what I can't imagine. What if he shows like this year, a couple of signs and runs for a couple of touchdowns, and everybody gets quarterback aroused? Then what's done around here? You just do the wrong thing.
Well, and that may if next year is what they've got this year, then I don't think that's near enough.
What do you think he has to show to legitimize that long term?
He needs to be out there playing the vast majority of games, and this team needs to be thick in the AFC South race. The Houston Texans have begged somebody to win that division the last 2 years. They really have. And everybody said, nah, it's okay. So, yeah, I think – I don't know that they're going to say, boy, it almost needs to be playoff or bust. It just does. Or go into December, deep in December, and not, boy, if we finish 9-8, then maybe if 3 teams lose. No, it needs to be. I'm not going to say playoff or bust, but boy, it feels like that. It just does. You're going to be wearing out your must-win mantra next year.
A lot of wearing out being done here. Yes.
Well, but this is what they've created, and this is, yes, there are injuries and this, that, and the other, but if Jonathan Taylor hadn't dropped the ball at Denver, if he hadn't crapped the bed like DeForest Buckner said they did it against the Giants, still, one of the great quotes that we got, I think Dave Griffiths asked a question of Joe Flacco about how close this team is, and he said, you got to be careful when you think you're close. I'm paraphrasing. And you're probably really not close. So maybe you don't do the necessary things. This team is close to being close, which probably means you're not close. I mean, I'm kind of, roundabout way. I mean, they've got so many glaring holes. How about a tight end, a corner, a safety? I'd love to have a better receiver in that group. I mean, a really better guy. But T. Higgins, you're going to pay $30 million minimum to bring in T. Higgins if he's available. So, but they've got issues to do, and that's why I'm really curious how Chris addresses the media tomorrow. He's going to stand there and take it, and he's done that in the past, and so I'm curious. It won't be. I'm just curious how it'll go tomorrow, because it could go in a lot of different ways. But there's going to be some hard questions, and hopefully there's some good answers.
So Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59 on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'm assuming this is absolutely out of the question, but this wouldn't be the first time I'd go this direction. I will right here, especially with what you have cobbled together here with a general manager that's not been good at what he does, a head coach that's not been good at what he does, and a quarterback that's not good at what he does, and then a team that's not been good or counted upon, as DeForest Buckner mentioned, egos getting in the way, crapping the bed, kind of visions of 2022. I have suggested, Mike, that especially right now more than ever, and with Jim Irsay kicking this can down the road another year, as he has, with all those pieces in mind, that this organization needs a president of football operations again. Does it?
Well, but that's what – I mean, Bill Polian was general manager until they changed his name to president. Because Bill wanted to be president.
He was the overseer. He was the overseer of everything. And I think with Jim, I think that's what's necessary right now. You need an overseer of everything. Chris is not capable of that. I mean, hell, he can't even put a team together on the field that goes above 500. So he can't do it.
I don't know.
You got a head coach that doesn't. I mean, obviously stuff goes on in the locker room. You're saying the wrong things. He likes to, he could dry a race board great offensively, but don't you need an overseer of those that clearly need to be watched, I guess, with the actions?
I think if that's what you believe, then you don't believe in Chris Ballard, because that's sort of what the GM is anyway. It is the owner puts a guy in place to sort of run the team, with certainly input from the owner, and he makes final say on how much of the purse strings you let go. So it just seems like, unless you can throw a name out here that
you give J.J. Redick in the NBA Nate McMillan. It's one of those situations like in basketball where I just like Jim used to be that. I just don't think Jim is that anymore. And I think that's necessary. And this team was at its best when it had that. I know Bill's different. He's a Hall of Famer. That is different. That's always going to be different. But I think that an overall watcher, an overall decision maker outside of Jim was what is necessary, and clearly Chris is not that.
But then what you're saying then is you don't trust the GM, which obviously you don't. But I don't know that adding another layer to the decision making, unless you're simply saying then the owner doesn't do that. I don't know. All you're doing to me is mucking it up, and you're kind of paralyzing the decision making because you don't trust the GM and you don't trust the coach. If that's where you are, then you start over, and that's what you would have done anyway. But I don't think if they would have done what you and a lot of people want them to do, blow it up, I mean, all the way, blow it all up, I don't think you would have brought in a president and a GM and a coach. You would have brought in a GM and a coach. Your point, I think, is that you don't trust the GM, so you want somebody over him. Well, then that means you should have gotten rid of the GM in the first place. So I don't agree that a guy above the GM helps. I think it probably hurts. All it does is reinforce the fact that, well, I don't trust this guy, so I need to bring a guy over him. And if that's the case, then you get rid of the GM.
And it also is, I just kind of wonder, and you could tell us, better than most, where is Jim as far as decision-making is concerned? He looked really good in what was a ridiculous locker room speech, but, he looked really good in giving it on Sunday after the game. I'll be honest with you, Mike. I used to make fun of this all the time, and I'm very hypocritical about it. I want 22 back. And I know I called it a clown show. You and I both have laughed about that before, but that's when Jim was proactive, and he was being proactive. Made the wrong decisions, wrong choices, but was proactive about it. I don't like the just kind of, this is okay, and it's 8-9 and all this. This just seems like you've fallen into a low bar category right here that you're just not willing to raise or get out of anytime soon.
Well, and that's why I was glad to see. I was with Kevin Bowen there outside the media room when Jim left that room and went to the locker room, and it was good to see him. It's obvious he doesn't have his mobility back yet, but I was encouraged by what I heard.
He sounded good. Yes. Yeah.
Not what was right. I thought he sounded strong. He's making decisions. He is, and I think he could have done without. I'm proud of you guys for fighting back to beating a crappy team in overtime.
Yeah. Hooray! You're 8-9. I know. I can't believe they put that at Colts.com too. By the way, can't believe.
Yeah, I understand. Part of the message was good. The first part, and then you don't praise a team for needing a field goal in overtime to beat a team in disarray. But again, what I took away is that he is in control. And again, we can argue forever, and we will, and disagree. No, I really don't disagree with what you say. I wouldn't have blown it up, but I don't know how I would have fixed it, which is, at least you've got conviction about what you would do. I don't, because I don't know what blowing it up would have done other than kick this franchise down the road about 3 years. But that's why, it either works next year or it doesn't. And I think we know in the end of September. We'll know late in September next year if this is going to work or not. Can you imagine this team coming out of the gate 1-3? And the quarterback struggling.
Well, hell, I can imagine it because it happens all the time. Yes.
I know. So yeah, you want to give the one thing that always helps every year is, hey, it's a clean slate and trust this and this is going to work. And they're not going to have that going into next year. It's not going to be trust this and this is going to work, and it's going to be in what they do. How active are you in free agency? Do you sign 3 or 4 guys that are going to come in and either start or be top backups? Really start. And the draft, you're going to get what you get out of the draft. I mean, at 14, they're going to get a good player, maybe a tight end, maybe a corner. I don't know. But then we've talked about this, and unless the quarterback works, I don't care what for the most part, I don't care what the other parts are. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And they've hitched their wagon to Anthony Richardson. I hope that the light has gone on. And, I'm always wanting the second Peyton Manning. We both lived through that, and we saw the ultimate quarterback in what it takes. I think there's very few quarterbacks that are wired like Peyton. I really do. And to compare any of these guys to him is unfair. It just is. But there's still a level of commitment that a guy's got to have. I hope Richardson has that. He's got all the talent, but how many times – I'm telling you, through my years, the 4 decades or whatever, I see guys walk through that locker room with all the talent in the world.
Yeah.
And they just don't have it. And if you don't have it, your talent's going to take you. So it's gotten you here, and that's it. And then the rest is up to you. And but if the light goes on and he stays healthy, if they've got a chance. If he doesn't, I just don't know how it works. And I tell you, one of the free agents they come up with, it's got to be somebody to challenge Richardson for the starting job. I mean, legitimately challenge.
100% accurate about that, too. Hey, Mike, 30 seconds before I let you go. Anarumo and Steve Wilkes are guys reportedly being interviewed by the Colts for the defensive coordination gig, the scapegoat gig, if you will. So anybody else you want to add to that list?
Not that I see, no. You're going to see more names, and they got, this defense was broken. I like Gus a ton. He's a great guy. It just didn't work. As I was looking in the last 3 years, they're number 30 in points allowed per game. Can't do it. It doesn't work. So they'll get somebody.
It worked last year, and they let him play out his contract too.
I know. So we'll see. But
man,
it's this is where we are.
This is where we are. It's zero fun. There's no fun in this. None.
I don't like chaos.
I don't catch any enjoyment whatsoever about being this way and talking this way. There's zero enjoyment in my world for this. None.
Yet you're asking for 2022 all over again.
Yeah, because I want a little proactiveness that is necessary.
Oh,
I think we've seen the future. We know what the future is going to be.
That was knee jerk, and knee jerk's never it's seldom a good thing.
Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59 right there. All right, hey, don't get out there and shovel a lot of snow tomorrow, okay, buddy?
I won't. My doctor said I can't shovel snow, so I won't be shoveling snow.
Thanks for saying Dick on the show, too. That made everybody laugh.
Did it make it?
Yeah, it did. I let her all fly here, buddy. We just let her go.
All right.
Take it easy, Mike.
Next week.
Mike Chappell of CBS 4, Fox 59. Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. Chargers and Texans wild card in the NFL on Saturday. Ian Eagles got the call. We'll talk to Ian next.
Ride with JMV.
We're putting the band back together.
Forget it. No way.
We're on a mission from God.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
A podcast with Mike Chappell a little bit earlier. The Rob Blackman, voice of the Boilers. You got Purdue Rutgers coming up at 6 o'clock tonight, about 30 minutes away. From Piscataway, Rob Blackman a little bit earlier. Kristen Ary, voice of the Pacers. Pacers Golden State tomorrow night. Pacers 2 games above 500. 6th position in the Eastern Conference as it stands right now. Podcast 1075thefan.com. But on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, TNT and CBS. And he's got the honors of calling the game with the Texans and the Chargers coming up at 4:30 on Saturday. That is wild card game of the NFL postseason-wise. Number 1 at 4:30 on Saturday afternoon. Our friend Ian Eagle joins us now. Ian, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, what's up, JMV? How are you, man?
I'm telling you, if you're the Chargers, one of the 3 or 4 Charger fans that are out there, you probably dig on this matchup, right? With Houston, the way that they've played the last month or so.
Yeah, that seems to be the narrative, that Houston didn't really have the type of season they thought they were going to have, despite the great start. They were 5-1, but a lot of tumult, a lot of peaks and valleys, and they hit the postseason. And from the outside looking in, it feels like, okay, this is a brief stay for the Texans after winning the wild card game last year against Cleveland, losing to Baltimore in the divisional. And yet we had our meetings with the Texans today, and of course, you know, it's going to be different within that facility, but very positive, very upbeat, very bullish on who they are and the challenges that they've dealt with this year and how they've come out on the other side of it feeling as if they're ready for the clean slate, for the 0-0 record, the postseason matchup with Los Angeles. If you look at the credentials for the Chargers, yeah, they took care of business, incredible turnaround season under Jim Harbaugh. But look, you play who's on your schedule. Their schedule was not the most challenging of schedules. They had 2 wins this season against playoff teams, and both of those wins came against the Denver Broncos. That's it, 2-5 against teams that are in the postseason this year. So you delve a little deeper. Houston believes that they're in good position, and although they're really banged up in the skill position area at wide receiver, they think they have enough. And I must tell you, walked away from our meetings sensing that they've got some confidence going into this one.
It's Ian Eagles got the call with the Chargers, the Texans coming up on Saturday. NFL wildcard game, number 1 of the AFC. And we know, obviously, thinking about those in Southern California and the L.A. area right now with the wildfires that have just been absolutely disastrous. And certainly in terms of game effect, you're still kind of watching the one coming up later on Monday at SoFi in L.A. in the NFC. But I'm curious, this also has an effect on those that come from that city, that community that may be going through this personally as well. Any players, any personnel for the Chargers that you've talked to, you're aware of, that also will be going through this? Maybe not even them themselves, but certainly somebody that they know in the L.A. area.
Yeah, we're scheduled to meet with the Chargers tomorrow, and obviously we'll have more information after we have those meetings. But certainly there's going to be people affected, whether it's players, the extension of players, staff, coaches. That's unavoidable right now, considering what's happening in L.A. I don't know what the decision is going to be in regards to the Monday night game. I think the fact that it is Monday night, that's probably why the NFL is holding off a bit to see what the next 24, 36 hours look like. But JMV, as you know, when something like this takes place, something catastrophic, this has been horrific, and seeing the video has been completely heartbreaking. People's lives have been destroyed. Everything else can seem very small. And I know there are 2 schools of thought of, hey, life goes on, and sometimes you have to provide comfort and entertainment in some other form, but you also don't want to be tone deaf. And I know that the league is going to take everything into account before they make a big decision in regards to the game in L.A. I just know on a personal level, I've
got Nets games scheduled for next week against the Clippers on Wednesday night, against the Lakers on Friday night. So 2 LA games. No idea what this is going to look like over the next 7 to 10 days as they have to deal with the reality of the situation, and sports takes a back seat.
I believe I read where the Lakers and Hornets game has been compromised for good reason later on this evening. And, horrific is exactly on point right there for the video and even the still photographs that you see coming out of there. Just some unimaginable stuff, Ian.
Yeah, I've been trying to pay attention to everything while also compartmentalizing on the things that you need to do in terms of your job and your life. But it's hard not to feel the empathy for those that are going through just completely tumultuous times there. It's hard to believe. It's mind-blowing when you see some of the images play out, places that a lot of us have been to in Los Angeles, and it's just gone. It's ruined.
We shall digress back into the sports world with that. With Ian Eagle joins us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline right now. I'm sure you got a little look-see here recently with the Pacers. What are you thinking about this? Is it a corner being turned that we have seen with this squad now over 500 by 2 games?
I think so. I felt that way the other night, saw them up close and personal. I think they're benefiting greatly from playing in the Eastern Conference, where you could dig yourself out of this early season hole and not be completely in the back seat or on the outside looking in. I just go back to last year, what they accomplished. I did not think it was an anomaly. I really believe that they had the makings of an outstanding team. I believe in their head coach, and Rick Carlisle, always have, always will. So it just felt like it was a matter of time. They absorbed some tough injuries, key players that would have had an impact for their team. They've made some adjustments based on that. We've seen Mathurin really step forward, take on a bit more responsibility, and he's up to it. I'm a big fan. And look, we both know that Tyrese Halliburton playing like an all-star is going to make a world of difference, and that's what's taken place. He just seems to have his mojo back. He's doing things the way that we had seen in the previous few seasons. And I also think Andrew Nembhard plays a huge role on that team. There's a toughness, there's a savviness that he has. Defensively, it's obvious, you can see it. But then making the right play, making winning plays, that's been a big part of it too. The last time the Nets played the Pacers, Nembhard was not in there. And not surprisingly, that was a Nets win over Indiana. Now fast forward a month, Nembhard back, and they just seem to have rediscovered what made them successful last year.
I would, and I have described him, I think he's like a Drew Holiday type of presence on the rise right here.
Yeah, I think his impact, while you can see it in a box score, because he does check a lot of those boxes in different categories, I think it goes beyond the box score. There really is a certain command and presence that he brings, and he's young. He's young in terms of NBA experience, and he's young in terms of his age. So they've got themselves a real keeper. I remember doing games of his back at Florida, and thinking to myself, man, I don't know what this guy is going to be, but he gets his fingerprints all over the game. Of course, he then transferred, and his status then moved up a couple of notches because the team that he was on, Gonzaga, was making noise and was a factor in the NCAA tournament. And then to see his brother at Creighton and then take the same path now at Gonzaga, they're just tough. They're tough-minded, and they make good things happen.
It's funny. I've watched Gonzaga because my son grew up a huge Gonzaga fan. That's when they started to really rise and evolve into the team we see right now. And People, we went around when we had the all-encompassing tournament here in Indy. We went over to watch them at Hinkle Fieldhouse play, oddly enough, Creighton in that semifinal, a regional semifinal. And it was weird at the time in that tournament run. I thought that Andrew Nembhard, because Baylor was so good, so athletic, so up and down at such a quick pace, I thought at the NBA level, if this is going to equate to it, that maybe Nembhard would struggle at the very beginning and in trying to keep up with that. But you know what? He hasn't. Not an ounce. Yeah. He was more prepared for that. I thought Davion Mitchell was certainly more prepared for the NBA, but he seems to be more equipped for that than even Mitchell at the time. And it's interesting to see the challenge that is taken and then the type of player that you see in a different environment. And while he was really good at Gonzaga, he immediately upped his game to that NBA level once he got here, and even surprised somebody like me that watched him a great deal.
Yeah, that's part of why scouting is such an imperfect science.
Yep.
That you could watch a player more than just a game or 2 games or 10 games and still not have the perfect read on what they're going to translate to at the next level, and vice versa. As you mentioned it with Davion Mitchell, who was such a huge impact guy at Baylor and part of a national championship team, and the defense that he brought, you just assumed, oh, all right, well, that's going to be a commodity. And look, he's still in the league. He's still making a go of it and trying to carve out a role. But Nembhard has already shown that, he's going to be a 13-year pro. And he shot it better than I think anticipated. He didn't really look for a shot at Florida. At Gonzaga, he did start to maybe see that part of his game as evolving, but it's been better than I anticipated. I'm with you. And that gives a lot of credit to scouting. It also, it's one of these reminders, JMV, you've been at this a long time, who you go to, which team takes you,
correct,
also plays a really big role in what your career may turn out to be. You take the same player and put him on a different team, different franchise, different development program, or they view him in a certain way and then never use him in the way that he should be used. That can change your career, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. In this case, I think with Nembhard, it's been for the better. It's been a really good fit.
He is Ian Eagle on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Before I let you go, you got a home and home with the Pacers at Cleveland and then back at home with Cleveland Sunday and Tuesday of next week. We've not seen Cleveland around here in the regular season yet. Normally, it's kind of a dirty phrase to have 2 bigs in a lineup as they do in Cleveland. How does that work at such a high level to the tune of 4 losses so far with Mobley and Allen together on the floor so much?
Yeah, they're not your typical bigs. I saw a lot of Jared Allen as he was evolving as a player with Brooklyn, and now to see him blossom the way that he has as an all-star. He's a great guy. So that was never in question. He was willing to put in the work. That's the irony also. Coming out, you hear stories or you get tagged. He was tagged as a guy that, I don't know if he really loves the game. No, he loves the game. He just loves other things. He's just an interesting person that has interests in many different areas of life. So that was unfortunate that was the reputation that developed. He's overcome that. He's become an all-star. He's become a not even traditional center because he isn't, but he is more of a throwback. And Mobley is more of the nouveau big, where you can mix and match him 5 and 4 spot. He can block shots. He's an incredible help defender. He's developed his offensive game. I saw him in college, had him in the NCAA tournament as well when he had his brief stay at USC, and everyone was comparing him to Kevin Durant. That was the comparison, because anyone that had that kind of length and could put the ball on the floor and could face up automatically got compared to KD. I wouldn't make that comparison with him. He's a different kind of player, and it's just a really nice combination. Kenny Atkinson has been the perfect guy to up that team to another level. It was an outside influence, outside perspective. And they're no longer a fun story. They're legit. Look at their record.
Yep.
JMV.
That's it.
This is one of the greatest starts in NBA history.
This is not just good fortune. This is legit,
Exactly. So that'll be fun and really good litmus test for Indiana.
I love what Kenny Atkinson, I know you know him very well, too, what he had to say about his time in Golden State about, hey, it was kind of like taking a class and more preparation there for what he has done and what he assumed role-wise in Cleveland. So.
Yeah, and I don't even necessarily think it was the X's and O's, although that might be some of it. I think it was how do you connect with players, how do you manage egos, how do you handle the dynamic. And Kenny was full bore when he was in Brooklyn. You would never question his basketball knowledge. A guy who was a gym rat and played professionally overseas, and he tried to elongate his career as someone that was always on the edge of maybe not playing basketball anymore. He would squeeze out another year. He learned French so that he could coach in France, which he did and got experience doing so. But I think by his own admission, it was, I need to figure out when to put pedal to the metal, when to pull back, when to hug a guy, when to get in his ear, when to be positive, when to challenge him, all of those things that come with time. And this has been about as good a marriage as you're going to find for him in year number one with Cleveland to bring them to these heights. Donovan Mitchell's a tremendous player, but this is not a one-man show. They're a true team. This is a fun group.
So Iron Eagles got you. Chargers, Texans, 4:30 CBS. That's the first wild card game of the playoff weekend. We will be watching. Man, it's good to have you back, buddy.
Yeah, great to be with you. Excited to be on the Houston Invitational Saturday at 4:30, and away we go.
God, we will stay in touch, too. Have a great call and have a good time down in Houston.
Yeah, appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
It's Iron Eagle on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Just a tremendous dude, as you can tell right there. Quick break. We'll come back. Little Wayne tickets before the top of the hour. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Ride with JMV.
Well, we're waiting.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, number 9 at 239-1070. You guys want to go see Lil Wayne? February the 27th, Gainbridge Fieldhouse. You can do it right here. Number 9 gets a couple of tickets, and you can go on us. 239-1070. Lil Wayne at Gainbridge Fieldhouse coming up on February the 27th. Again, number 9 at 239-1070. You can go. We'll do this coming up again tomorrow, too. And you heard this right before we jump back in. The Indy Ignite professional volleyball team fires up things in their first season. Their first match coming up on Saturday evening. Will be there Saturday afternoon for you for a little pre-game party at the Fishers Event Center. That's going to be an absolute blast. George Padgett yesterday, their head coach, joined us for a conversation. If you missed any of it, I know that I'm speaking to a lot of families out there, to a lot of dads, a lot of moms that have kids that are in volleyball. And it has become an incredibly big deal. And I know a lot of people were excited about it. That takes place coming up on Saturday. And once again, I'll look for you up there. We'll start with the pregame party of the afternoon and then kind of slide in to that first matchup with Orlando itself later on in the evening. Now, with that, the JMV takeover will be delayed by about an hour. I'll hustle ass in here. Probably an hour, maybe around 7 o'clock or so on Saturday night for the JMV takeover, which should be a blast once again coming up on Saturday. Weather-wise, we shall see, too. There'll be a lot of getting around. When's that inbound snow? 2 to 5 is what they suggest right here.
I think it's supposed to come Friday. I thought it was coming Friday in the evening, but it might be coming early.
Because Mike Chappell mentioned that he thought maybe it was tomorrow early, but we shall see. JMV, Tom Telesco got fired. There's your new director of football operations. Yeah. Hey, I think I'm like a lone voice with this right here. I don't know if I've met anybody so far that believes in my thought on that. At least nobody that's been on this show. Well, everybody kind of go, well, wait a minute, that's what your general manager's about. Well, in this case, it's really not. And I just think that you just all-encompassing. And my thought is it's more than just personnel. It's attitude. It's all of this. You know, you have to bench your quarterback mid-season. You have DeForest Buckner saying what he said about the locker room and the defense and egos at the end. You got to find a solution for that junk, too. And I know winning is the ultimate cure for everything, but you got to find a solution for that. I just don't think the solution is there. 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, Chris Ballard meets with the media. You can hear that right here on The Fan. 10 a.m. Chris Ballard tomorrow morning here on The Fan. All right, we got Notre Dame and Penn State coming up. 6:30 is your pregame right here. Is that true? No? So I know 7:30 is the kick.
7 o'clock pregame.
7 o'clock pregame right here. 7:30 is the kick. The Orange Bowl, Irish, Nittany Lions. The outcome, we'll talk about that tomorrow and more. Thanks to everybody being on the show. Thank you for listening. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.